It should be.
Final.
I think we need to get the conversation going.
I want to welcome everybody. We have the Water Bureau meeting, regular meeting for Wednesday, November 8th. If you could carry the conversation out somewhere else, I'd appreciate it, please. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We've done a roll call. We have a quorum.
Yeah, this is John Myrtle, if I could just confirm. Commissioner Lewis, are you called in to the WebEx? Commissioner Lewis, is that you with the number that ends in 89?
Somebody.
4, 5, 6. Okay, we still have a quorum.
Okay, very good. We are at public comment relative to agenda items. If there's anybody from the public wishing to speak, anybody online? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of meeting minutes of September 27th, 2023. Is there any corrections to the minutes proposed? Any corrections? I'll entertain a motion.
Thanks, Julie. Move adoption.
Motion made. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next thing on the agenda is consideration and potential action for the 2024 district water rates.
Move adoption.
Second.
Adoption in this.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Then after this passes, we'll
Yep.
okay.
That's the same.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion and we have a second to move the resolution forward. We have a second, so. All those in favor?
No. Aye. Discussion.
Oh,
Discussion.
I'm sorry, discussion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Do you want me to bring this up
Just
now,
move it.
under discussion or afterwards?
Just ask for a vote.
You're all good. You're good. No discussion.
No
So
discussion, ask for a vote.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Very good, motion passes, resolution passes. There's a,
I ask for the opposition.
I'm sorry, anybody opposed? Is there any opposed? Motion to, for the resolution is passed unanimously. There's a commissioner had a question concerning the water rates, which I'd like to present.
Off light.
It looks like you haven't
They
set up
had
any
it-
HomeKit accessories. You can connect smart devices like lights.
you turn that up, Don. I can't.
I know.
They had they would like an opinion from our district council to the, to that if there's anything in the charter that would prevent the MDC from selling water to other water companies at a rate above what the MDC sells to member towns. So I'll turn the meeting over to district council.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Chris Stone, District Council, and the commissioner in question. He and I spoke about this initially a few weeks ago, and it got lost in the shuffle, so to speak. And then we had another conversation today. We'd be more than happy to look at that issue. I think it's an important one, given what's going on statewide. So if you want to, if there's a if you would entertain, Mr. Chair, not me, but you would entertain a motion for me to do that, or my office to do that?
I'd like to, a motion to have a written opinion on that from district council. It's been made. Do I have a second for it?
Well, you made the motion.
You made the motion.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Adel. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is consideration and potential actions for the 2024 water assessment rates and miscellaneous water charges.
Move adoption.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously for the resolution for the water assessment rates and miscellaneous water charges. Next discussion is the electric vehicle chargers at the district recreation areas. Is there somebody that's going to discuss this?
Chris is on the phone.
Okay.
For a motion,
Discussion.
discussion.
You handling this, Chris?
Yeah, good evening. This is Chris Levesque, MDC. I'm going to go through the presentation just to give an update and hopefully some clarification. I know we did present this probably a couple months ago, but a couple feedback questions on types of chargers, and then also discussions with local authorities, Connecticut DPH, as well as West Hartford Fire Department for the proposed location. So, Joe. We looked at proposed EV charging stations at our recreation facilities at West Hartford Filters, as well as Reservoir Number 6. We worked with a Eversource contractor who performs this work. They are, if you recall, was active in Massachusetts. It was released in Connecticut in 2022. The funding details around that is 100% of the cost of the electrical infrastructure to basically bring the power to the locations of where you want to have the charging stations. And then after that, it's a 50% shared cost of the charging station with some maximums of the cost of that. So pH. I'm going to get into that in a little bit more detail, but Julie, if you can go to the next slide, please. There was some discussion on the options for EV charging stations. So just to quickly go through, level 1 is your standard if you had a residential property and say you had a Tesla or other type of electric vehicle. This is essentially the slowest. So it works off a 120 volt outlet or circuit, and basically charges. You get about adds about 5 miles of range per hour of charge. Now these aren't typically recommended. Now what is prevalent out there right now is level 2s, just in for generic public access. So the level 2s is what we looked at as far as a proposal with the Eversource contractor to see, just to get a ballpark of the pricing. But the 60 miles per hour of charge. So we look a infrastructure from the utility around there to provide essentially a 1 megawatt up to, or greater 1 megawatt up to 1.5 megawatt of energy. And that provides you potentially up to 200 miles in a 15-minute charge. So pretty significant charging capabilities with some of the higher at their facilities for obviously the showcase for the electric vehicles. But we I'll move forward.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Wait one sec, Chris. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would say, yeah, level 2 makes good sense. Is that what we have downstairs in the parking garage? Because that sure seems to take forever to charge. Is it?
Ask Chris.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry to go back to like high school, college physics class, but the equation is amps times volts. So it does determine it is a 240 volt charger. But based on the amperage that we're supplying that charger, the kilowatt charging capability does go down if it's a smaller circuit. So I'm not sure exactly. I'll look into that, but it may be a 50 amp circuit to that charger, which would reduce your kilowatt output that's getting into that vehicle in the B-level garage. If that helps.
So Bill, one sec. My second part of that question would be, do we know what the average stay at the reservoir is? I mean, my experience is at least a couple hours, so you're getting, I mean, you want to make it worthwhile to the person to plug in, that they're not going to just get 10 miles or something and paying for the charge. But it sounds like if we get an average stay of 2 hours, and the 2 hours will get us, how much now, how many miles would that be? Somewhere between 20 and 60? I guess it depends on the weather, et cetera. So maybe put it in the middle, 40, 80 hours. That's pretty good considering like many cars are only 100 miles radius. So I'd say a 2 would make sense. I'm sorry, Bill.
Chris, I believe if you hardwire the 240s or the 300 amps, you're going to get 20% more capacity. That's what I did. I think that's a plug number. The 240 is a plug number. That's what you're going to get out of it. If it's hardwired, I think you get 15 or 20% more capacity out of them. But that's an hour charge. It depends on the car. Some of them can do it in, they can go from whatever it is to 85% in an hour. And the 3 is a half hour. I would recommend that you'd go to the 300 rather than to the 240, because most people are going to use that. And people will come also that are contiguous to the reservoir will use it too. So, I haven't used it on mine, on our car that much, but definitely the 300. If you're on a trip or you're going to take some time off, you only get a half hour. You can move 85%, up to 85% in most cars.
All right, thank you. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
I blinked and I'm not sure. Is this a discussion about, in addition to installation, is there a cost, potential cost to MDC? Or is this just a discussion of allowing West Hartford and Eversource to install these on our properties?
No, there's a cost.
Then I guess my follow-up question would be, why?
Yeah. So we've had this conversation on numerous times. It's actually started out in BPW and then went to the Water Bureau a couple of times. We have presented on this a couple of times. The decision at Water Bureau, I don't know the date, but it was what we presented, the cost, the revenue stream. John, Chris, did you get into the revenue? No, he didn't get
Jumping right to the punchline. I think it's next slide.
All right, why don't you go to that jump slide? So that's tough to read, Chris. It's tough to read, but can you just talk about the overall? Now this is for the tier 2, not tier 3. Tier 2 is how much cost, Chris, to us?
Yeah. And insurance through, there's a number of, and we got quoted on 3 of them, but ChargePoint's one of them. There's other suppliers out there. They basically provide a service to you that all the billing goes through them, and then you receive the revenue back through them. So they of the equipment, but you pay a service fee for them to maintain that equipment ultimately. And then that's included in the overall cost of the that the customer would be paying, basically swiping their card, or if they have account on a ChargePoint account. That's basically a transaction fee that a vendor or manufacturer would provide. As part of this spreadsheet, I also included the electrical charge. Right now, this facility all in with T&D costs as well as supply were about 19 kilowatt as we go through the year with T&D costs changing consistently. And then basically our internal labor administrative on an annual. I didn't inflate numbers either way, so I kept it fairly conservative. So this is on an annual basis and then ultimately on a total as far as what we would be accumulating. So dollars. One thousand. There are a fair amount of electric vehicles out there, but I did drive through, and whenever I go into West Hartford, I'll make it a point to sort of drive around and just see what type of vehicles are in there, just to try to validate my assumption. But I would think there's about 1,000 hours of charging on an annual basis there. But so we ran the numbers based on this. I did that. Companies like Charter do idle fee charge for people just parking there without using the electricity, even though they're hooked in. So period, the revenue cost is there would be a cost to us almost about $10,000 related to that.
So
I was just, if you could wait 1 second, please. You know, this was in front of the Water Bureau. I don't remember exactly when, but I thought that we had come to the conclusion that it wasn't really worth it. And one of the topics that came up was, are we going to encourage this type of thing? And what happens if we end up with fires? And how are we going to fight those fires? Considering that this is watershed property. And I'd like to know, Chris, have you talked to the fire departments in that area, and have they come up with any solutions for fighting the fires for EV cars that don't contain PFAS?
Sure. And then, so just real quick, we did reach out to Connecticut DPH, and they provided, hey, you need to do a change in use, and then we'll evaluate this. So I did want to provide what those requirements are. This is on Class 1 and Class 2 watershed land. So where the chargers would be, it's a stone throw from a stream that's tributary to potential drinking water, Reservoir 1, as well as one. So this would be even specific to watershed land, not just water company land. So the next slide, Julie. Thanks. So potential impacts. This is really what we wanted to look at. Obviously, we've had history. CAA, Bradley Airport with PFAS discharge recently at a facility in Hartford with PFAS getting into our sewers, and how do we deal with that? Have a conversation with West Hartford Fire Department. They currently are using non-PFAS containing foam. It is this F500 encapsulation technology. And through the further conversations and looking at this product as well as how they store it and how they would apply it, really the goal is specialized to extinguish the lithium-ion battery. So
Changing use now.
the and this is obviously it's a really a struggle for the fire departments to address these EV fires, because once the battery catches on fire, they think they have it out, and then spontaneously it recombusts and reignites itself. So ultimately, the battery just needs to run its course, and what they end up doing is basically putting the vehicle in quarantine till all the fuels are gone. But one UTMR 5 testing protocol. So as you recall from other water three-quarters of UCMR 5 for our PFAS at our port of entry into our system. So that's really good. And our patrol staff to deal with. So these would be certain things that take away from our core business. And to the equipment, when you have it there,
Chris, thank you very
So-
much. That was very informative. I'm going to turn this over in case Scott has something to say, and then we're going to get to Commissioner next, Commissioner. Scott?
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just, again, the practical side of this is the what-if scenario, right? It's not going to happen, but if it happens, then what? And that's what we're worried about. We're very conservative here at the MDC, and as you can see that car, you know, that's a theoretical situation, right? If you've been to West Hartford Filter, the cars are parked 6 inches from each other. It's in the middle of the woods. A fire like that, you know, depending on the season, could create an actual forest fire. It's something that is a concern, a challenge. You know, if the boards or Water Bureau so choose to do something like this, it would have to be a remote location, not in the general vicinity of the parking area of others, because as you can see that picture, you'd have 4 or 5 vehicles in flames. So we don't want that for sure. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Salemi, you have a question?
You know, about the light and make this a harder decision to make, but to the whole and you know, I think our charter gives us the responsibilities to do a number of things. This is not one of them. And I why would we provide a service for, you know, electric powered vehicles? It's not related to what we do in our core functions, as we just heard Chris Levesque say. It's pretty hard to align it with a core function. But, you know, based on that, you know, I believe we, you know, Scott. I guess visitors to those buildings. But it's not, we're not going, you know, at a public park. I really think that's outside the realm of what we should be doing. And if you add to it all the liabilities that we just talked about, you know, I'm going to say that I'm not in favor of this under any circumstance. I think that there are plenty other places that are more accommodating for the public to use for a charging station. So those are my comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Salemi. Very good points. I appreciate it. Is there any other questions or comments from any of the other commissioners? Commissioner Allen.
Just for the record, I independently checked with Department of Health, and the people I spoke with over there said there was no permit issue. And I think I passed that along to the clerk.
Yes, you did, Commissioner. Thank you. And Susan Negrelli talked directly to that individual you talked to. Susan?
Yes, Susan Negrelli. We went over to DPH a couple months ago on some other water supply issues, and they mentioned about the electric vehicles and chargers, and a permit is required. It's called a change of use permit. I don't know, you know, we have class 1 and class 2 watershed land where this is supposedly proposed on, you know, at West Hartford or Resi 6, and there is a permit. We have to go through the process. There are probably ways to, I don't know that they would hold it up, but I don't know that it's something that we want to push forward just because of the ramifications or potential damages that could come up.
I'm sorry, just to clarify though, but didn't the person from DPH misspoke telling Commissioner Adel that it was class 3 land?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about
Yes,
that,
thank
Scott.
you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Their mapping showed this area as class 3 in West Hartford. We know that Reservoir 1 is not abandoned, so it is still class 1 and class 2 watershed lands in that area. I'm sorry, I forgot about that.
Very good, Sue. Thank you. Any other questions, Commissioner? Any other questions from anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just one.
Yes.
Depending on the action tonight and I mean, you're asking or proposing or at least discussing taking ratepayers' dollars and investing it in a business, a revenue source that's not going to be positive. At the very best, it would be revenue neutral. But even if it was a positive return, say 10%, doesn't matter. The other liability factors just outweigh any of that. So I would suggest to you as chair that should this come back again next year, don't put it on the agenda.
Very good. I appreciate your comments. This was put on strictly for discussion for Commissioner's request. Is there any other comments from commissioners online? If there's no objection, we'll go to the... Hi, Commissioner. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with everything that has been said. I think there is more, you know, other, even not considering, you know, expensive. We have to protect our waters. And as of right now, there seems like there would be an impact to our waters, and I think that's impacting our livelihood, right? Because that's what we do. So I think you know, they should be considered very you know, with strict and we act on this particular matter.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there anyone else? Any other commissioners that have any comments? Hearing none, we'll go on to the next agenda item, which is discussion reference of cannabis growing facilities located within the...
Number 7.
Oh, I'm sorry. This discussion in reference to stewardship of district forests and addition of other forester.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me now? My name is Andrew Hubbard. I'm a forester and work for the Natural Resources Department for MDC out in Barkhamsted. That's a nice view of the Barkhamsted Reservoir I took a couple of falls ago. I just wanted to give you a brief update on the health and condition, current condition, and sort of future projected condition of MDC's forests. It's our mission to provide high-quality raw water to our 3 treatment plants. We own about 25,000 acres in Connecticut and about 6,000 acres in Massachusetts. That's another photo of Barkhamsted. Pretty much everything in that picture is owned by either MDC or state of Connecticut or state of Mass Forest. So it's Barkhamsted's a very well buffered reservoir, which we'll get into the importance of that moving forward. Most desirable possible land use for drinking water reservoir, or really any water body, would be large block of forest like that. Forests provide a natural filtration. They also really buffer the reservoir, which is critical. And another critical thing, us being a water company, is it's been proven time and time again that a high quality, healthy forest surrounding and protecting the watershed reduces the amount and cost of water treatment, which is super important for a business like ours. We have about 100 and you want to hold the plan up quick? I got the new copy of the plan under my seat there. It's almost a 200-page forest management plan on the property. It covers everything from soils to stands of trees, species of trees. There's cultural features, threatened and endangered species. There's a whole litany of things within that plan. It kind of serves as a blueprint on what we do on the land. And it's the one document that pulls everything together. So if anything ever happens to anybody, there's a written record of what's gone on. We actually have maps of the property going back to the 40s of all the different projects that have gone on. Those have now been updated into our GIS system, but we really do have the place. I'm not aware of anywhere else in this region that's as well documented as our property, which it's pretty cool, pretty unique. The goal of watershed forest management is to promote a continuous cycle of trees, green cover across the landscape. The key really is resiliency. We want a diversity of species and a diversity of age classes. That diversity leads to like a resiliency which can help us in the event of like a single catastrophic event. So, we're sort of due for a major hurricane. We haven't been hit with a Cat 5 hurricane since '38, and that pretty much missed Barkhamsted. That hit more out where like Scott lives, out on northeastern Connecticut. Yeah, your area got hit hard. But if we got hit by one of those today, it would not be ideal. That would be a lot of work for me. Just to sort of point out on this picture, might be a little bit hard to see, but this is a stand that we had done an entry into, and you can see there's a diversity of species. There's both hardwood and softwood trees in there, and there's different age classes. So if a catastrophic wind event did hit and knocked over those overstory trees, look how green the understory is. We're already good to go. So we could sustain that a lot better as if it hit a mature stand that had no regeneration. So in a dense, shady situation, there's really no trees on the forest floor. So you kind of need to open it up to start that next age class. And everything I'm talking about tonight is pretty well accepted within the watershed forest management community, whether you're up at Quabbin for Boston or New York City's got 160,000 acres up in the Catskills. They're doing very similar things to what we're doing. Again, the strategies are that resiliency is the key. I was in a workshop the other day called Climate Smart Forestry, a webinar, and this is exactly what the people from the Forest Service were talking about. It's just, good silviculture and create a nice diversity of habitat or diversity of forest cover types and manage the trees for the site that they're on. So we have different soils out there on the property. So as an example, like oak pine can do quite well, in fact, thrive on pretty poor, sandy, low fertility soils. So on those sites, we'll manage for oak pine. If you get onto a higher soil fertility with more soil moisture, trees like sugar maple, yellow birch, yellow poplar do really well on those sites. So depending on where we are and what the soils are, the position on the landscape, north slope versus south slope, dry site versus wet site, those are the trees that we pick to retain on those. So when we do some commercial entries, when we do go in, we remove the lowest quality trees, the poorest suited trees for that site. That's really just kind of good stewardship. One of the challenges we have, some of you may remember back in 2009, my predecessor Karen Yule came in here and got permission to do a deer hunt out on the Nepog property where we had a super high deer population. Big problem with the deer is they eat about 5 to 7 pounds worth of forage a day, so that could be acorns, grasses. A lot of it is baby trees, which is what I'm trying to grow. And unfortunately, the little trees, the little seedlings, the deer are picky eaters. So they eat pretty much everything except 1 or 2 species. One of those species they don't like to eat is black birch. Black birch is a nice native tree, but going back to that diversity thing, I don't want only black birch. So before we started the hunt in stands that got affected, whether it was by an insect, a wind throw, something like that, the only thing we were growing in those stands was black birch. Initially, we got all kinds of stuff, but the deer went through and systematically eliminated all the sugar maple and oak and yellow poplar and all these other things and just kind of ignored the birch. So we do have some stands that are like super dense with black birch. Long-term, a high deer population will reduce the overall biodiversity. We've been hunting, like I said, in Nepog since '09. We added Barkhamsted, I think it was in 2015, and it's helping a lot. As you walk through the forest out there now, you're seeing a lot more diversity. When I started at MDC about 15 years ago, you wouldn't really see much beyond seedlings. You'd see some seedlings of different species, but they would never make it to a sapling because they would get hit before they got above the deer. The deer will browse to about 6 feet. So now all of a sudden we've got yellow poplar and sugar maple and oak that are up over 6 or 7 feet up above the deer. The downside is the moose are still hitting them, but that's a whole different situation. So we're doing the best we can do with the moose, but I'm pretty optimistic at how the hunt's gone so far. Just to go back quick, another one of the strategies that we're using, I don't know if you can see that in there, there's actually an 8-foot high box wire fence that was put around a heavy cut. That was cut heavy because it was defoliated 3 years in a row. You can see by a caterpillar, you can see the Nepog Reservoir in the background. If you look in the foreground, you'll see basically ferns and grasses. And if you look through the fence, that's the second year. The fence was up the second growing season. The aspen was taller than the fence. And there's absolutely no aspen outside that fence because there's aspen, but they're 6 inches tall because the deer browsed them right to the ground. Nepog, we've had a little bit more trouble controlling the deer because we only own so much of it. There's a lot of private land down there that isn't hunting. We've been much more successful in Barkhamsted because we're completely surrounded essentially by state land that is hunted. So the deer population in Barkhamsted is significantly lower than Nepog. So Nepog, we've had to, along with hunting, substitute the hunting with things like, in this case, a deer fence. In this case, it's hard to see, but we've used brush, in this case, around another defoliation, same actually event, same 3-year event. Nepog Reservoir, this is the other side, is in the background. And we just used brush, had the loggers, as he salvaged the tree, just pile brush around. You can see on the right-hand picture, that's outside the fence. It's mostly ferns. There's some black birch starting in there because the deer could care less about it. Inside the fence, there's better than a dozen species that are taller than I am after 2 years. So it's amazing how much the deer can browse. You would never think they could do it, but they can. And the proof is inside. You walk inside the fence. It's unmistakable standing one side or the other of the fence. Here's an example. This was the exact same defoliation event. For some reason, I'm hung up on this event, but it was quite a lot of work to get this under control. This was up by Lake McDonough in the town of New Hartford. You can see the kiosk that was there, which was telling the general public what happened. There's a public hiking trail that goes through that. There's a high mortality event, 3-year defoliation. The 3rd year, the trees did not leaf out. We were able to sell those trees for a pretty significant amount of money. Within 5 years, you can see the regeneration that occurred there. We did not replant that. That's native regeneration. New England has a tremendous ability to regenerate after disturbance events. And again, the deer population is a little lower up there, so we really didn't have much problems with deer. But just, who would think in 5 years, some of those trees are 10, 15 feet tall in 5 years. And you can see in the 2018 picture, there is absolutely nothing there. And there was nothing on the forest understory because it was a very dense, shady stand, so there's no sun getting in there. And then once it got cut, the sun just brought everything along quickly. Major challenge that we're facing now is invasive plants and insects. People have probably heard a lot about these things. I have a feeling people will get annoyed if I run through each and every one of these insects. One of the insects that I do want to cover, though, is the hemlock woolly adelgid. Woolly adelgid is a non-native insect, came up to New England in the late 80s and has wreaked havoc with hemlock, especially hemlock on drier sites, shallower soils, where the hemlock is generally stressed out by drought, also warmer sites. Another thing about invasives, they just tend to degrade wildlife habitat. They're a poor food source too, which is sort of interesting that invasive plants' seeds aren't as nutritious for our native plants and animals. And what's kind of interesting, I just was at an Audubon workshop, and they were complaining that they think a lot of like Neotropica or migratory birds that are up here during the summer that fly to South America aren't making it because the nutrition, they're attracted to the shiny berries of some of these invasives, but the nutrition isn't there to sustain the bird. So just sort of interesting. This could be a 2-hour PowerPoint, just this slide, and I can tell that's not something anybody wants to hear much more about. But here's a pretty cool success story. North end of Barkhamsted Reservoir, we have 3 major streams, Hubbard River, Valley Brook, and Hurricane Brook, all of which are lined with hemlock. Beautiful ravine, cold water streams. Those 3 make up the east branch of the Farmington River, which is now the Barkhamsted Reservoir. Critical streams to that reservoir, completely lined with hemlock, beautiful steep ravines, a cold site, perfect site for hemlock. We had a couple mild winters, the adelgid numbers start building up. And the reason I say that, adelgid gets knocked back by super cold winters. If you can get down below 0, you'll knock them back. So the adelgid, although it came in from more like West Virginia, that area moved up this way. That was its initial introduction. It hasn't penetrated into northern New England where it's colder. So in order to control the adelgid, we were basically relying on a polar vortex, which we only get so many. You really got to hit 10 to 15 below 0. The person in that picture there is Dr. Carol Chia from the Connecticut Ag Experiment Station. She found a predatory beetle, which I cannot pronounce, but I've helped release in those ravine communities. Those little predatory beetles are ferocious feeders. We release those into hemlock that have adelgid in it, and they just go right after it. They do a pretty good job. She, at times, has to store them at her house, and so she has to feed them before she can release them. So she'll bring branches covered with adelgid, and she'll put them in there, and she'll go back like a day or 2 later, and it's gone. And the little buggers she throws another branch in there, and they're just right on it. So it's kind of interesting. So that's a biological control. It's been pretty successful. We've been super fortunate that we've done it a couple years. State of Mass and State of Connecticut found out that we were doing those spots. State of Connecticut actually released some on Hurricane Brook on their property because it's a beautiful stand of hemlock that goes from Connecticut DEP to MDC. State of Mass released some up on their property in Granville on the Hubbard River, which runs right down into MDC. So we're kind of fortunate that we were able to sort of double up on it, and it seems to be helping. So that's kind of a nice positive story. Here's kind of an interesting chart. This was from an inventory done in 2006. This shows the diversity of tree species at MDC. In this chart, there's 28 trees. There are more trees out at MDC, but they'd be like less than 1%, so they kind of didn't make the chart. As you sort of look at this chart, all the way on the left, you'll see hemlock at that time in 2006 was approximately 45 trees per acre. That number's gone down significantly because on those drier sites with warmer winters, before we knew about this beetle, those trees went and were largely replaced with black birch. So on this same chart, our black birch number, if this chart was updated to today, which it's tough to update 31,000 acres, it's hard to just go out there and do this. So it's a monumental effort to come up with this. That black birch number is going to be way up. Another number that's sort of going up is yellow poplar is going up all the way on the right because ash has been hit by emerald ash borer. You may have read about emerald ash borer in the news. It's another invasive insect that's decimated southern New England's ash population. So these numbers are moving around. If we went back 100 years, the highest green bar would have been American chestnut, which got chestnut blight between 1900 and about 1920. Early in my career here, I still could find an occasional standing dead chestnut this big around. We still have American chestnut shoots coming up out of some of these stumps. The chestnut blight kills the above ground portion of the tree, but it doesn't kill the root system, so they're still there. We've been involved in all kinds of chestnut plantations. We recently had a Connecticut chapter of the American Chestnut Foundation out with a bucket truck pulling chestnut seeds off of some chestnut trees along some of our service roads, which they're going to be rearing in their nurseries. It's an ongoing effort. I don't know if I'll see it in my career, but it is going to happen. The chestnut will get restored, and when it does, we'll be planting them all over MDC as well. So that's something to look forward to. It's it's going to happen, just a matter of time. Climate's a big challenge too. Again, I mentioned I was recently at a climate smart forestry workshop. I think we've all noticed increase in, heavy rain events, milder winters. Those milder winters are causing me a problem personally with ticks, and also professionally with, the hemlock woolly adelgid numbers going up because we're not getting that 10 or so below zero, which historically in a place like Barkhamsted, we would get down below zero pretty much every winter at some point. But the shorter, warmer winters is definitely a problem for them. Really flashy flows. The bottom picture here, that's a culvert which I sized the first year I worked at MDC using a time-tested Forest Service chart that I had super confidence in. When that pipe blew out during a 6-inch rain event, the reason that pipe was actually put in 2010, 2011, we had Irene. Irene knocked that out. There was a smaller pipe in there. I think it was an 18-inch pipe. So I went through, grabbed my Forest Service manual on road building, calculated the square, the square acre drainage area through there, and located that point, and it came up with a 28 or 30-inch pipe. So we put a 28 or 30-inch pipe in. I thought everything was good. Well, we had a 6-inch rain event on a Monday night into a Tuesday, and that thing was gone on Wednesday.
You calculate the wet
Did I?
wet pipe diameter.
Yeah, it's a Forest Service thing. I'm a forester, not an engineer, so I just use Forest Service chart, and it's always been good. But again, with these crazy rain events, so this time we replaced that 30-inch pipe with a 48-inch pipe. In the meantime, it cost us money to replace the pipe. All that sediment got into the reservoir. So that's that's an example of some of this climate stuff, causing us issues. So from now on, I'm going to upsize stuff by probably 20%, just because it's cheaper to put a 48-inch pipe in once but remarkably, the 18 or 24-inch pipe that was in there had been in there for decades. And like I said, it went during a tropical storm, and then this was an unnamed storm. Nobody even knew about it, but we literally picked up 6 inches overnight up there, and it just took it. So kind of interesting. A lot of people are concerned about changes in forest and species composition. I don't think it's a huge threat for our region. Farther north, definitely. Some of the spruces are already kind of starting to decline and sort of retreating up into Canada. A lot of the trees on MDC's property you can find in central New England at pretty good elevation, which is significantly colder than here. You can also find them if you drive south. So you'll find your oaks and hickories and tulip poplars and some of the sugar maples, down Maryland and, Virginia and places like that. So I don't think in the immediate future we're going to see a big change in species composition here. I think in the northern part of the United States, I think you're probably going to, because some of those spruces are like kind of on the southern edge of their range. Most of what we have here is kind of smack dab in the middle of its range. So I think we'll be kind of lucky in that respect, but some of these rain events are definitely causing us some issues. Now I want to turn next couple slides over to Ray Burrell.
Thank you, Andy. I will say one thing. I'm manager for our water supply, our water treatment and supply department, and I can never not be more proud of having somebody like Andy Hubbard on our staff. I mean, he's a wealth of knowledge and, certainly an asset to the MDC and to our watershed lands. We talked to, Chris Levesque mentioned the PFAS. I know it's been mentioned in a number of board meetings that, our drinking water has been non-detect. And it's not a surprise based on, the lands that we own around our reservoirs and our source water protection, the protection of our watershed lands. It's a testament to the dedication of the present employees in our natural resources department and to those in the past. So it's no surprise that we're very fortunate. You see what's going on with a few other utilities around Connecticut. Their water supplies aren't as protected. Their source water protection programs may not be as robust as the MDC. So we do a tremendous job here, and the staff that works in Barkhamsted, I've never had a more dedicated staff in my life. They're very passionate, very educated. And, you talk about the work that we do here. We also have a lot of partnerships with Connecticut Ag, DEEP, wildlife divisions, universities. We're doing studies all the time that we may not be the ones presenting the studies, but they benefit the MDC in the end by allowing others to contribute to our success. So it's a lot of those partnerships that are just, out there. Our water protection program is notably recognized, around the country. It really is. And, I know Andy's worked with people from Cornell University and others, regarding our source water protection program. So just quickly, Andy, he's very modest, doesn't say anything about himself, but he is our natural resources administrator. He's a registered forester in Connecticut and Massachusetts. He's also a certified soil scientist, and with 28 years of experience. So he comes, very well educated and experienced. And our other forester that's on our staff, he also has a BS in forest management, and he's also licensed forester in Connecticut and Massachusetts with 15 years of experience. Now, they don't do it all alone. So we have 14 facility maintainers that, assist in our endeavors whenever needed. So we've, underwent, job consolidation several years ago. And because of that, we have, our staff now performs, collectively watershed inspections, hydroelectric plant operations, building and grounds activities, filter bed maintenance. And, they've grown professionally, and it's a tremendous resource now for the district and for our department. So, they're kind of like the support system for our water supply operations and for our source water protection program. Some of the successes that we have with that cross training, I've taken good observation, during that period, and I could see that, we have higher quality employees because of it. Their attitudes are more positive now than ever, and they've personally grown. And I think that, coming up through an organization, you're looking for that. And I think, the education that we provide them, the training that we provide them, and the continuing education all adds into that, adds value to them personally, and adds value to us within our department. Some of the watershed inspections that we perform, we could perform up to 2,000 watershed inspections per year. Those are mandated, and of course, those are all within our watershed area. Those are all supported by, we have a number of people that have been cross-trained on that. So we dedicate those inspections, we prioritize those that could cause the most contamination priority areas, and we tackle those every single year. We also improve the process on these watershed inspections, whereas the watershed inspector used to go out there with a clipboard, a paper inspection sheet, perform the inspection, for dozens of inspections a day, go back to the office, and then input that data into a access database that was pretty much obsolete. Now we have a tablet-based system, cloud-based, so the watershed inspector is on the property, he's clicking and making notes, and all of that information is automatically uploaded to the cloud. And at any time we want to query anything, we can do the reporting and anything of that nature, and note any violations and go back, and it's easily tracked. So the bottom line is that, we're well positioned for today, we're well positioned for the future. I don't see the need for another forester. I think, I've been involved in this department since Chris Levesque was elevated out back in around 2017, 2016. This department has grown even beyond, with Andrew Hubbard and his staff, has grown beyond, the management expectations. From my perspective. And again, like I said, I was a water treatment guy, and now I'm water supply and water treatment, but I've learned so much, throughout the past few years, and I'm in awe, every day, with what they do. So I'd be happy to take any questions, or Andy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray.
Is there any questions from commissioners, either here or online? Commissioner?
Is there any opportunity for placement of interns that would benefit both them and MDC?
Absolutely. That's every year we take on 2 college interns, and it's a very tight industry. Foresters are in high demand. There's not a whole lot of jobs out there, but we take in 2 interns every year that work with Andy and his staff, and some of them have come back twice. They work on projects, and different initiatives that we implement through the summer. And for them, I know Andy has a number of interns now that, because of their internship here, they've been very successful in obtaining employment elsewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Huddle?
Chairman, thank you. Ray, what are we doing though over at like 1 and 6? I mean, this has all been about what's happening up at Park Hampstead and Nepog.
Right.
Do we have any management going on there?
We do, yeah. I mean, obviously, most of the attention is in those larger areas. But we have identified a number of hazard trees this year. And it's, that area there, when it comes to like, okay, we need to do a timber cut there. It's not happening with the public there. Timber cuts are not happening. We take care of hazard trees. We take care of the management of the forest the best we can there. But, certainly, you could probably identify an area there where you say, okay, we could legitimately justify a timber cut there. But with the public walking in there, it's very dangerous, very dangerous. And I'm not sure if you want to add anything.
We've done a number of treatments over there over the years. They did a big hemlock salvage at West Hartford Filters around some of the northern reservoirs. We did, early in my career, we did about 85-acre hemlock salvage and storm damage salvage on the west side of Reservoir 6, a little bit at the northeastern corner of it. And those went off pretty well. But it'd be, for us to get over there and do something, it'd have to be pretty significant, and it's a pretty significant effort to cordon the area off to make it safe for visitors as well. And that, if asked, I will do whatever I can to help out over there, but the priorities have to be the larger watersheds, just from a water quality standpoint. It really is the key. A lot of stuff can get handled on sort of a tree-by-tree basis at Reservoir 6. In Barkhamsted or Nepog, it's like at the stand level, so it's really blown out. So it's kind of like arborists does sort of tree-by-tree stuff. Foresters do large block treatments. I mean, most of what I do is 100+ acre type projects. They're much larger in scale and in very rural areas. So that's where forestry kind of shines. It's a lot harder to sort of pare it down, and do something meaningful, in sort of tighter corridors.
So maybe Forester wasn't the right, suggestion. What about another arborist? Would you have use for one of those?
Something I hadn't thought of, to be honest. So.
We do, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
To add to that, as Andy and Ray mentioned, the multitasking job description that we created in 2015, now the FM1s, the facility maintainers, now support a lot of that activity that was never done before. The foresters were doing their own thing. They were using contractors to do the work. And as Andy mentioned, his staff, his 14 staff, we also have staff in Resi 6 and West Hartford Filter, FM1s, that also support those efforts on Resi 6 and West Hartford Filter. So individual tree by tree, things that fall down in a storm, our maintenance staff is taking care of.
Yeah, and Carl DeSaunier is in charge of maintenance over there. Whenever there's a new insect and disease, which unfortunately seems quite frequent, I always go through there, see if it's located, and then I bring Carl out and show him, so him and his staff can keep an eye on those trees to see if they decline. A new one that kind of hit West Hartford Filters recently was beech leaf disease. Carl is now aware of that. His crew is now aware of that. So sort of on a tree-by-tree basis, as things become dangerous, they're either addressing it themselves or they have a tree contractor who can come in and remove that stuff. But it's difficult to go through an area like that with the recreational pressure and the other facilities there and kind of do a larger scale thing. So it's kind of more like a hazard tree, individual tree-by-tree kind of situation. So I have kept Carl abreast of any current and or upcoming health issues for him and his staff to keep an eye on. And we are over there several times a year, just checking it out, making sure there's nothing new going on. But again, 90% of my time is in Nepog or Barkhamsted, basically.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? I want to thank you both very much. Extremely knowledgeable, great presentation. I'm amazed every time I get a presentation from the staff of the MDC. You guys are so knowledgeable, and you're always thinking ahead, and always trying to make improvements. And thank you so much. The
Thank
next
you, and
thing,
come out to Water Supply sometime. It's fun out there. Do a tour.
absolutely.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you.
Thank
Andy.
you. The next thing on our agenda is discussion for cannabis growing facilities located within the district.
So, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
We had a request from Commissioner Mandyke to look into, I think the intent of her request was to look into the industry and whether or not there was an opportunity for the MDC to expand or sell more water to this industry. We do have a facility existing in Bloomfield, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, that uses about 20,000 gallons of water a day, which is good. It's not a huge water source, but it appears that I don't quite understand the permitting issues. Oh, is she? Commissioner Van Dyke? No. It appears that there are some regulatory issues within the industry, within Connecticut, that may or may not be interfering in the expansion there. I know that there is going to be down at the Brainerd Road, there is going to be a facility at the old restaurant, the Chatterpot. That is going to be, from our understanding, it's going to be a dispensary rather than a growing facility. No? Do we know that, Tom?
No, Scott, I think the Chowder Pot is going to be the growing facility.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And then the.
Yeah. For that
Okay.
one though.
Okay, I
Sorry.
apologize for that.
My understanding is, Scott,
Yep.
they are rehabbing the old restoration gallery, and that's going to be the dispensary.
Dispense, sorry. So there'll be a growing facility at the old restaurant, and at the lighting center is going to be the dispensary, the point of sale so it is. I mean, it is an industry that uses water, and that's a positive thing. Whether or not it's going to grow within Connecticut, we don't really know. I don't partake, so I'm not contributing to that industry. But
Any questions from commissioners? All right, thank you for addressing that. Is there opportunity now for any general public comments? Please come forward.
Judy Allen, West Hartford. I just have to address the electric vehicle charging stations. As you've learned, there's no PFAS in the firefighting foam anymore. That's a state law that they can't do that. If you were worried about spontaneous combustion, you should be worried about what's going on down in your garage. You don't want spontaneous combustion down there. The fires are a result of crashes. The cars don't just all of a sudden catch fire. I think that's kind of an argument that doesn't hold much weight. The Department of Public Health permitting, that makes sense, and protection of your watershed that way, that makes sense. But you've got cars leaking oil. There's all kinds of things, and you can get into the minutia of things. But this is a service that just makes sense. It's a public service. It's public relations. It really doesn't have dangers. Department of Public Health will figure that out if they do. It's an easy thing to do. Lots of other businesses and government organizations provide this service. If I'm going out to the reservoir and I'm got an EV car and I'm going and I'm doing some recreation. Now, a car's not going to do a full charge while they're at the reservoir. They're not going in empty and leaving full. But if I'm then going on to grandma's house and I can get a little extra charge to get me there, then that's great. It really should be very simple. And I really would like to hear more about scenarios at other places, not just what the cost of the charging would be. Are there other reservoir kind of places that are offering this? Are there other public locations that are offering this? What have been the positives and the negatives, not just the financial piece of installing something like this? You don't want it to happen in your garage. It won't. You don't want it to happen in your parking lot out at the reservoir. It won't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other public comment? Just want to remind people that it's always good to be extra cautious around our watershed area. Since there's no other public comment, I'll ask if there's any commissioners have any requests for future agenda items. Hearing none, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.
Very good, we are adjourned. Thank you.